Thanks so much, Mohammed. Give me a sec just to stage my screen. And there we go. Great. Thanks. And my name is Tovio Roberts. I'm a data science instructor at Galvanize. If you're watching this, you probably already heard or saw my bio. Quick cap. I have 15 plus years of software development experience, mostly as a contracted developer, and I did that because I was touring with bands and touring as a circus performer. I'm a professional juggler, and I transitioned out of that into special needs education for college students on the autism spectrum who were in STEM fields, mostly computer science and related fields. And I like to make art and music, and so I paint, and I also play around with generative models for music and art. And beyond that, I'm really fascinated by pedagogy and andragogy. So I spend a lot of time studying and thinking about better ways to teach and learn. So I work at Galvanize, and if you want to know more about them, Google us. And basically, we are a data science boot camp. We have a data science boot camp, and we also have a lot of other aspects of our company. So the crux of what I want to talk about is concerned with relational ethics, accuracy of perception, and some pitfalls of categorical and reductive thinking. I have two quotes here, and I want to use these quotes to frame everything I'm talking about. One is from Ababa Berhane. Relational ethics helps you leave whatever solution you have somewhat partially open so that you can reiterate, so that you can revise and change with whatever new evidence or new data comes up. Our solution now is only for now, within a limited context, within a limited environment. And I have a quote here from Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who's a professor of neurology and neurological sciences at Stanford. We take things that are continua and we break them into categories. When you're paying too much attention to categories, you can't differentiate two facts that fall within the same category. When you put up boundaries, you have trouble seeing how similar things are on either side of it. When you pay too much attention to boundaries, you don't see the big picture. All you see are categories. So what I'm talking about here will be partially about marketing and mostly about the efficacy and problems related to the use of personas within marketing. I'll be talking about an alternative to personas found in the continued simple utility of topic models like latent Dirichlet allocation. And at times I'm going to point out tendencies in business that reflect social systemic issues. I'm going to start with the story of a company. I went ahead and invented a company called Leash. I'm going to use Leash to contextualize how personas might be applied. Now, this is a totally made up scenario to serve as some archetype of a company that many of us have seen play out, okay? So Leash is a reasonably sized startup, or reasonably small, but reasonably sized, that specializes in providing crowdsourced dog walking, sort of like an Uber, but for booking a walk for your dog. We have this organizational structure. We have a CEO sitting in a relationship with marketing, human resources, a small legal team, and a sales team. We have a CTO who mostly works with the front and back end developers. Let's imagine there's somewhere around 150 people who work at Leash. Let's also consider that the data scientist might be contracted in, given that the revenue model is not necessarily centered around the value of the data. The value proposition of this company is really the service, which is pairing of gig economy dog walkers with the paying customers who want their dogs walked. And let's assume that there is a small design team and an analyst connected to the marketing team. Although the app designers and the marketing design team share aesthetics, they're mostly separated as they're working on different problems, but within the same brand. The app devs are concerned with delivery and functionality of the app, and marketing wants to acquire and sustain users. Let's say Leash is active in a few US metropolitan areas including New York, Chicago, Denver, and let's just imagine a few others. The main idea here is the regions they serve are diverse in a number of ways. And let's say Leash gets the idea that they want to better know their customers. So this brings us to personas. Personas are a widely accepted method to approach building a customer-centered narrative by helping design teams empathize with users. More specifically, in this quote from Pruitt and Adlin, a persona represents an aggregate of target users who share common behavioral characteristics, in other words, a hypothetical archetype of real users. And the main pioneer of personas, Alan Cooper, states that real users are not elastic. Well, I don't think I agree with that, but let's go forward and talk about this a little bit more. So a key material aspect of the persona strategy is a persona description, which is a one-page sort of character sheet of a user. It's meant to give basis or descriptions of a made-up person's goals, motivations, and maybe their behaviors. There's often a stock photo, a name, age, story, and other things. These persona descriptions are intended to be resources for marketing, design, UX devs, sales teams, and they represent something like a quintessential customer. The hypothesis here is that if a designer considers a persona description as a real person with thoughts, feelings, a story, experiences, then the process of design will be a human-centered process. This is all part of human-centered design. Anyway, let's look at an example of a persona. That's a joke. It's a character sheet from Dungeons & Dragons, but let's move on. Our company, Leash, decides that it's going to make 6 personas, 3 for the customers that are hiring dog walkers and 3 for the dog walkers themselves. They enlist the data analyst in marketing to perform a fairly extensive analysis of both of those user groups. Let's assume that the data includes people's addresses, as well as some volunteer demographic data, like age, gender. There's a discernible profile picture. There are extensive descriptions of the dogs. People love telling you about their dogs. The analyst pulls keywords from the descriptions, such as adopted from shelter, things like that. The data naturally contains number of walks requested by customers or performed by dog walkers. At the request of marketing and upper management, the analyst also scrapes people's social media for education and employment background. Addresses of customers are tied to median income and median house values of neighborhoods. And given the photos of customers, race is inferred in 3 categories: white, non-white, and black. So I think some of you might already be imagining some issues that might be emerging in our hypothetical persona process, but let's leave that for a little bit. The analyst finishes their analysis, hands off to the marketing director. All agents find the analysis to be validating, but not necessarily surprising. And to make the persona descriptions themselves, the analysis is handed off to a contracted individual who specializes in personas. That person mocks up 6 persona descriptions. Some poetic license is allowed in the design process, because that helps to create really relatable characters when you make personas. And I'm about to show you some mock-ups. I'm hoping that you'll be thinking about what might be sort of wrong with these and what might be wrong with this type of representation in general. So the personas are as follows. We have Karen Whitlock. She's 43. She's a woman. She's white. Her persona category is the Valkyrie, let's say. And this is common. People who design personas will name personas things like this oftentimes. She lives in the Wash Park neighborhood of Denver, makes about $200,000 a year. There's a goal here, that's expressed in a quote, like she's talking. The idea is you look at this and you imagine this person talking with you. And she primarily uses Leash because she has 2 dogs. One's older and one's younger, and the younger one's very excitable and needs to be walked more. And it looks like she hires Leash about 4 times a week. We also have things in here under the attributes, her attributes, like wealthy. She's liberal. She's tech savvy. She's an extrovert. She's analytical more than creative, and she's active more than passive. And of course, she has these D&D specs that we can use to battle the personas against each other later if we want. Here's the bachelor, Ben Chaddington. Lives in the uptown neighborhood of Chicago. He uses the app for walks about 2 times a week. Tends to be more conservative, an introvert, and more analytical. And his reason for using Leash is that he has strict work deadlines that prevent him from being able to walk his dog as often as he wants to. We have Alicia Montoya. She uses the app 5 times a week. She's in the first year of her master's degree, and she's also working, and she just can't make the time. She's more liberal. She's more creative. And yeah. And so those are the 3 personas for our customers. Let's go get into the personas for the employees who are actually walking the dogs. We have Jared Whitby. He's 23, Caucasian, lives in the Lower Haight of San Francisco, and he's a dog walker. Okay. So this is one of those things that happens in the creation of personas. We're really excited that this person's into our product. So he's a dog walker and makes around $23,000 a year. Leash gives Jared the freedom to pursue other activities. He even lets the more energetic dogs pull him on a skateboard with the owner's permission, of course. Okay. And more active, more liberal, and, et cetera, D&D. Okay. We have Syed Laskar, who lives in Los Angeles in the Panorama City neighborhood, makes around $42,000 a year, 18 Leash walks a week. He works at Leash because it gives him the opportunity to make a little extra money while he plans to open a business, which is described here. We have Desiree Fullerton, who is a woman. She's Black. She's got a kid. She lives in the Benteen Park neighborhood of Atlanta, Georgia. And in her story, it shows that she grew up there. And her reason here is she can make extra money for the household while caring for her son. Since she grew up and lives in the neighborhood, she personally knows many of the neighbors whose dogs that she walks. She's upper middle, like on the edge of being upper middle class, liberal, and more of an extrovert. Okay. So I'm going to point out some of the things that I see as wrong with these persona descriptions. The first thing is that personas are a reductive approach to understanding a population of people. In an effort to humanize design and development, there's been this invention of an imaginary cast of characters that fit with the predisposed worldview held by the individual creating the personas. So why is that a problem? For one thing, these stories, as humanizing as they are, they don't capture the wealth of stories that actually exist in the population. Imagine how difficult it is to write something like a median story. Any fabricated story here is a single individuated instance of an imaginary character. And I think that's a problem. Not a complete problem. There are ways to do this well, sure, but I think that's a problem. And I think it's dishonesty in this case through convenience and poetic license. And I think it's misleading within our hypothetical company. So I'm going to assume that the designer of these persona descriptions is white and that they're doing their best to enact diversity and inclusion. But there's still an experience of whiteness as being the common experience. The first persona is a white woman, the second a white man. The first dog walker is a white man. And this is reflective of what I've seen in personas in the real world. I'm not just making this up. These personas do not look unlike personas I've seen enacted at companies. And further, even if there is a reasonable amount of diversity in terms of employees working at Leash, the people who will be designing according to these persona descriptions will be asking themselves questions like, would Karen or Ben appreciate and respond to this ad campaign? Let's consider personas in another light as a segmentation strategy and consider this in terms of, say, real estate. Home buyers have different needs and different budgets, and channeling them toward specific facilitators of those needs at budget seems like a reasonable thing to do, right? Well, that really depends. If any of you are familiar with the history of redlining in the US, you might already be considering some potential deep issues with that kind of approach. If you aren't familiar with redlining, the short story is that federal agencies and real estate companies, they have a history of intentionally preventing people of color, and especially Black people, from moving into many neighborhoods in the US. So you can see that there is a conflation that occurs between economic class and race when segmentation occurs along income lines. Add to that discrimination based on race or ethnicity, and you can see how a persona segmentation approach in real estate, let's say specifically in real estate, can easily turn into a form of segregation. So we can expand this dilemma to, let's say, a school system that institutes a series of persona descriptions for students. And I think you can imagine why personas might have a strong potential to create institution around discriminatory practices. And the final thing I want to mention is there's a fundamental flaw from a business perspective in making this sort of normative assumption that underwrites personas. Few people actually resemble some archetype of normalcy, and people have a great variety of reasons to use a given product or service. Yes, we can often generalize, like a dog walker at leash might want to work there because they get some extra exercise, or they want to make a little bit of extra money. And I think that's fair, intuitively fair, right? However, if we reduce to only a small handful of personas, then we potentially reduce ourselves to only a small set of customer motivations. And when we do that, I believe we narrow our view of the people who utilize our products, and we narrow our view of our own product's utility. Now, I could go further down this rabbit hole of everything that might be wrong with personas, but I'd rather propose a reasonably simple alternative approach. I want to suggest that topic modeling can give us better views into the stories and interests of people who use our products. Given that we have text data on our users, we can apply a topic model to discover hidden topical patterns, annotate the documents in the text corpus, and utilize the results. So the topic model that I'm going to focus on is latent Dirichlet allocation. It's well known, and it's been widely used since soon after its inception in 2003. So there's nothing revolutionary happening here. I'm not suggesting anything revolutionary, except can we maybe do this instead of personas in marketing? Can we build tools based on topic modeling? So I'm going to be somewhat surface level regarding the inner workings of LDA. If you want a deeper treatment, there are a number of links in the slide deck. There's a set of lectures linked here where it says topic models by David Bly. These are really great, and the math in them is really fun. And I also have a notebook here with a bunch of math. But the core premise here is that a document can be thought of as a probability distribution over some number of topics, and a topic can be considered as a probability distribution over a fixed vocabulary. So high-level view of LDA, it's a generative model in that it optimizes toward generating the words of a given document by way of that document's topic distribution. So if you think about it, that's a bit weird, right? Because when we write a document, we don't think in terms of, I want this to be 5% computer words, 10% fishing words, 35% horror movie related, and 50% words about cats. I mean, I want that document to exist, but I wouldn't know offhand how to write it. Essentially, LDA guesses at the document topic distributions, and it generates words for each document, compares the generated document to the specific document, and uses statistical inference to adjust the distributions of words within the given topics and adjust the topic distributions in each document. So why LDA? Although LDA is fairly old at this point, it's really easy. It's easy to implement. And more importantly, it's the interpretation of the results of LDA are really accessible or fairly accessible. Let me say fairly accessible. Also, there are quick and easy tools available to visualize LDA. There are actually more performant topic models out there that are pretty amazing. I link to a little Python library here called Tomotopy. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that said, I'm advocating here for LDA to be used specifically as an alternative strategy to personas because it's easy to use and describe. And some of these other models are more complex and they don't have necessarily as rich a set of tools for visualizing the results. I was actually hoping to throw together a Kibbe app for this lecture, but I ran out of time. If I get that together in the next couple of weeks, I'll make sure to post it on my LinkedIn. So we have data. I made a quick toy data set for our hypothetical company, Leash, and I put that in a Google Colab, which I'll go ahead and share that link now in the chat. Okay. So I'll go ahead and open the Google Colab, and we'll take a look at this data. All right. So I'll go ahead and import a bunch of stuff, and There's a little installation that might have to happen here, but it'll be quick. And feel free to open this up and play around with it. If you haven't played around with LDA before, I think it's a great little model, and it's really fun, and it has a lot of depth to it actually. If you dig into it a little further, just because it's easy to implement and interpret, it's pretty hard to dig into. The literature on it is a bit terse, and but once you start getting it, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm going to import data from. I just have these little data sets up on GitHub, and the main thing we're going to be working with here is this customer data that I made up. The profile descriptions are all just grabbed from the first few paragraphs of Wikipedia articles, and I kind of made these into classes where we have musicians, physicists, athletes, mathematicians, and actors. And the idea being that mathematicians and physicists are going to be tricky to discern. Musicians and actors are going to be tricky to discern, and we'll see that. We're not going to use these dog descriptions, but there's a list of things to challenge you if you're so interested at the end of this notebook. So we'll just be using these profile descriptions. I also made a smaller data set with 50 rows. Sorry, this first data set, the customers, has 100 rows. And we have the dog walker data set that has 50 rows. And you can play around with that. Okay, so you can see that there. Let's take a look at a couple of these descriptions. We have a professional footballer who plays for the France national team. And we have King Sunny Ade, who's a Nigerian juju singer. And so, if we run this again, we'll get other random articles. But these are going to be the things that we process to input to our LDA model. Okay, so now we'll prepare the text. LDA accepts a bag of words, and I broke out some steps here for the sake of learning, so that when you get to it, you can play around with it. And first we initialize a vectorizer, which will convert our rows of text into a sparse matrix of token counts, and it'll also drop common words in English, which we're calling stop words. And we initialize a lemmatizer down here that will reform variants of a word into a single form. And we also end up tokenizing the documents. In other words, we represent each document as its own pouch of words within the greater corpus. And we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at that right down here. So we'll look at a few documents and their actual tokens. And maybe I can make this a little bit bigger, a little nicer to look at. Bela Bartok, blah, blah, blah. And notice that this might be the original document, but our tokens have reduced this down to this collection of words. We don't include his name because it doesn't occur across enough documents, right? We don't include Franz Liszt for the same reason, although it would just be Franz and Liszt. So we also have this other one. We can see, this is Tom Morello, and it reduces down to this. So you can imagine there's a little bit of information loss that occurs when we do that. But in some ways, you can consider it to be maybe removing a little bit of noise from our data. So once we have those tokens, we can do a couple things. We can build a dictionary with the tokens, and then we can build this bag of words, which is named corpus here. So just pointing this out, there's around 6,000 words across all the documents and about 1,300 unique words. So let's take a look at that bag of words just to get a sense of what that is. We'll look at it in light of a token. So here we've got 28 tokens, 28 tokens and 27 entries in this bag of words in this term frequency. And notice that word ID 26 has two instances, which we can see here, degree and degree. So this is the form our data takes, and we're going to pass that into the LDA model down here. I'll start that running. because it's going to take maybe 30, 40 seconds to run. So we pass in the bag of words named corpus, and I set our number of topics to 5. That's an arbitrary choice, okay? I chose 5 because I have this assumption that maybe is unqualified, or we'll see, that there are 5 different classes of customer. And now that we have these topic outputs, right? Each of these is a topic. We can think about this, okay? We can see that topic 0 has mathematician, year, university, mathematics, research, woman, degree, science. Maybe that topic has something to do with math. We want to be careful not to say it's a math topic, but it represents characteristics of documents or characteristics that are affiliated with our more mathematical classes, I'm assuming. And then we've got prize, physicist, physics, work, Nobel. Seems like that. Topic 1 has to do with physics. Film, actor, this probably has to do with actors. We've got player time record, professional team, probably sports. And then this one's a little weird. American-born, known singer, musician, music, university, father. Okay, well, maybe that's musicians, but let's just take a look at this. So we can view the topic distributions for specific documents now that we have these. Also, the sum, this is very convenient in these topics. A topic is composed of all words in our vocabulary, and each of these is the probability of that word occurring. And that, I'm only showing here, I'm only showing 8 of the words affiliated with each topic, but we actually have, 1,300 or so words affiliated with each topic. Each of those words has a probability of occurring in regard to that topic. So that's the way that you can interpret that. Okay, so I'm going to choose 2 random descriptions, and let's look at the topic distribution for those. So we've got Chauncey Billups, who played for the Detroit Pistons, amongst other teams. And it looks like his most prevalent topic is 3. So let's go ahead and reference 3 up here. Player, time, born, team, 1, professional, record, national. That makes sense, right? There's probably very little in here that's affiliated with the other classes that we use to generate our data. And then we've got this educator and mathematician, Etta Falconer. And if we look at her, she has topic 0, topic 2, and topic 4. So let's look at those. 0 is mathematicians. 2 looks like actors. And yeah, it's interesting, right? Actor, television award, maybe there's something in that document that's indicating that, but I doubt it. So, LDA here might be a little broken, or there might be something a little bit different about that document, okay? And 4, American-born, known singer, musician, university, father. Okay, so I don't see anything in here except for possibly, it could be that we have a couple African musicians in our data set, and it might be using these words to identify the musician topic, for example. Note that we would do better if we had more documents here, and we would probably do better if our documents had more words in them. But this is purposeful to kind of observe a little bit of a failure in this approach. But I think it's informative of the utility of this model. So we can also view the topic distribution for a new or unseen document or user. So I've got this physicist here, Jules Ahrens, and I just tokenize and create a bag of words out of this paragraph, do a little cleaning here, and I pass that in, and I get something, I won't call this a prediction necessarily, but I get something that is a statement of the topic distribution, okay? So we would expect topics 0 and 1, which are physics and math, to do relatively well, right? 37, 29. And then this topic 4 that's sort of mysterious that we don't really know how to describe yet is also showing up there. So I wanted to show you this tool, or I want to show you this tool, Pi LDA Viz, which I think is pretty amazing in a lot of ways. It's one of the reasons why I think that we can reframe the idea of personas. It's that we have intelligent ways of visualizing relevant words in relation to customers. So I think this is the most immediately beneficial thing to someone in marketing. What we're seeing here are topic bubbles, and these are projected into a two-dimensional space. PCA for dimensional reduction, and then there's this intertopic distance that occurs through this multidimensional scaling. Oh, actually, no, that's right. And the distance is relative, and the X and Y axis don't mean anything aside from creating a sense of the relative distance. So if I click on one of the topics, I see a list of words, and these are set in order of the topic frequency for the word frequency within that topic. We can see here that these words can possibly represent someone's interests, right? We see mathematician, year, university, mathematics, research, woman, degree, science, study, etc. There's this nice tuner in here, the lambda tuner, which has to do with a metric called relevance, which was proposed by the creators of this visualization, the creators of Pi LDA Viz. And it's pretty interesting. If lambda is closer to 1, it will essentially show the frequency count of the words for that topic, which is what we're seeing here. Now, if we set lambda close to 0, it will show more definitive terms for that topic. And if we do that, we start seeing degree, PhD, advanced geometry, supervision, bachelor, postdoctoral, etc. And if we look at different topics, we might start getting a sense like this. This obviously has to do with physics, right? Particle, quantum, scientific astronomer, etc. And this mysterious topic that we couldn't really place, the one that is so closely affiliated to math, it looks like, or something that looks a little bit more sciencey. We might actually just want 4 topics here. We might not want 5, given that these topics are so conflated in this instance. So there's a couple things that I'm putting here as challenges if anybody wants to do it. Try passing in a description of a political figure, right? We don't have that class in this presentation, so in this data. So we can pass that in, get a sense of the topic distribution in light of our fit LDA model. You can also perform LDA on customer descriptions with their dog descriptions, and you might see more emergent topics. Now, you don't want to equate class with topic. A topic can mean something that's hard to interpret, right? We have topics up here that aren't really about math. They're not really about physics. Well, one of them seems very much about physics, but there are a couple things getting mixed up there, and that doesn't mean it's wrong. It does mean that it's hard to interpret, and sometimes we want to maybe let go of hard to interpret topics, especially if we're thinking about this in light of discovering behaviors in customers. Also, perform LDA on just the dog descriptions. I think that'll be fun, and maybe we'll see how many different ideas that how many different topics there are around these dogs. Okay, so let's continue from there. There's a sore spot with topic modeling in regards to validating the model, and I think I just alluded to this. How do you know it's doing a good job? Well, a general approach is to put your eyes on it. There are validation metrics available for LDA. There are, but there's yet to be one metric to rule them all. And there's still this primary issue of deciding how many topics on which to train your model, okay? That's a much bigger discussion. But I kind of want to wrap up with some thoughts in regards to personas and alternative strategies for two personas. So I talked a lot about a lot of things that were faulty with the persona strategy. It's reductive and easily prone to cultural bias, which can have a number of consequences in terms of not recognizing the potential of a product or the use cases by a user, and also in terms of potential discrimination. I didn't say this before, but I do believe personas can be done well and in a way that's equitable. I also think it's rare, and I think we should consider other strategies first. Whatever the strategy, I think we should center the wealth of human experience and interests instead of centering contrived archetypes. My implication here is that we can consider topics as human interests, which can be updated, and they're flexible. These interests aren't affixed to a specific persona. Maybe a user can be thought of in terms of being a distribution of interests and experiences, which are also distributed across society. I think topic modeling has the potential to capture at least a little bit of that for the benefit of those providing services, as well as for those utilizing services. Thanks so much.
Thank you.